Hello everyone, I hope you are doing well. Today I'm here with you in a very important session and class. It's actually about reordered paragraph. What I will be doing is discussing a very important aspect of reordered paragraph. Straight to the point, my strategy in reordered paragraph is as the following. You need to break the major task into minor tasks. How? I usually teach my students to follow this strategy, like 3 steps. First of all, they gotta find the independent sentence. Then they have to find the pairs, like the 2 sentences that come together. And this is where you will be getting 1 mark. You will be credited 1 mark for each correct pair. And at the end, I will ask them to check for the final order. I would say step 1 and step number 3 are easy. The tricky one is the one here in the middle, to find the pairs, especially that you are getting 1 mark for each pair, no matter what final sequence you get at the end. And because this is the most important step of the strategy and the most challenging one, I'm giving you today 6 tips that will help you to find the pairs. Let's get started and jump into the tips. So this is the full lecture I give in the class, by the way. So here are the 6 tips I'm giving to my students. As you see, there are 6 altogether. We're going to talk about them one by one, and each tip will be supported by an example. Starting with the first tip here, which I call it the object and subject relationship, or to be more general, I would say it's the implicit meaning relationship. How does this tip work? Usually, guys, in English, when a writer is writing, this writer would follow this style. Like if you have 2 sentences, that's sentence 1 and sentence 2. If those sentences come in sequence, there's a very high chance that the last couple of words here at the end of the first sentence would exist at the beginning of the second sentence. This relationship is very, very likely to happen. Yeah? So what you have to do is assume you have 4 sentences, like 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are the sentences that you need to reorder. And somehow you found the last couple of words in number 3 at the beginning of number 1. They could be mentioned the same or as a synonym. And this is why I mentioned the implicit meaning, yeah? Like you could at least find the meaning of the last couple of words here is conveyed here at the beginning of 1. So this could be a potential clue for a potential pair. At this time, you have to read 3 and 1 together in sequence, for example. If they make sense, then this is a pair. And this is where you're going to get 1 mark, no matter where you place this pair, in the middle, at the beginning, or at the end. Let's have a look at some examples and try to employ this tip on those examples. First example here. I will give you 30 seconds to find the independent sentence first, then I will step in. So the independent sentence would be the most general one, the one that introduces a topic or a theme, the one that usually doesn't refer to a previous action or something was mentioned earlier. It usually doesn't start with a pronoun or a connector. So if I'm looking at those sentences, I would choose, yeah, B. So B is my first sentence, yeah? B is my first sentence. This is the most general one. So you're going to nominate it as the first sentence. Now, if I need to apply the tip that I did talk about here today, looking at B, take a look at the end of B, various locations in our body. Where could you find the meaning of this phrase? At the beginning of which sentence? Do we have this potential relationship? Yes, we do have it here in E. So at the beginning of E we have this phrase, from eye to ear and from brain to skin. So now I got this clue. The second step would be, let's read B and E together. Do they make sense? If yes, then yes. Melanin is a type of polymer which is present in various locations in our body, from eye to ear and from brain to skin. It's present everywhere, yeah, definitely it is, yeah? So I would say B and E is a pair, and now you got 1 mark. This is 1 mark in the pocket, yeah? In this context, we were able to apply or employ this tip to find one pair. But sometimes in some questions like this one, you could actually solve the entire passage using this tip. And this is something we're going to do it together here. Again, I'm giving you 30 seconds to find the independent sentence. Is it A, B, C, D, or E? Yes, it is D. Yeah. So we're going to find D as an independent sentence. Now, don't worry about finding what comes after D. Try to find the pairs, because later you will fix the final order. If I need to start finding the pairs using the tip that I just discussed recently, what could we do here? I'm trying to slow down just to give you some time to think and kind of participate, virtual participation. I'm looking at A now, and I've seen this phrase here, eat and drink, eat and drink. Then I looked at E, at the beginning of E, as you see, it eats. Yeah, somehow we've got implicit meaning. So now I would say A and E is a potential pair. Yeah, there could be a relationship between A and E. So let's read it to see if it makes sense. Yeah, because we are after the logic. 4 days before it starts on a journey, a camel does nothing but eat and drink. It eats so much that a hump of fat, maybe weighing as much as 100 pounds, rises on its back. Yeah, makes sense. So I would say A and E comes together. Yeah, A and E come together. Not only this, even if you keep reading E all the way till the end, rises on its back. What does rise on the back? Yes, you can see it here at the beginning of B. Yeah, so the camel's hump. So I would say B comes here. So we are almost done using this tip. I only have C now. C could be at the end or in the middle. In this example, where do you guys think C is? I will place it here in the middle. Yeah, C would never come at the end, because if you look at D, the camel is called the sheep of the desert, and there's a good reason. Good reason because, yeah, good reason. Why? Because it carries its food and water with it. So C comes in the middle. And later they are telling us in A, E, and B, how does it carry the food and water? When they said it only eats and drink when it's on a journey. Yeah. Another clue probably, because I would say B starts with so. So we use so when we have a conclusion. And as you see, using the first tip, the object-subject relationship, I would say the implicit meaning tip, we were able to find one pair or two pairs. And that's really great, because you almost got 50% of the score in this task because of one tip. So this tip is done. Not all the time this relationship could exist, or it could be a bit tough to uncover this relationship. We could use another tip, which is the article tip. The article tip, how it works. Here we go. So usually in English, when a writer is writing, this writer could start with writing noun, a noun, the noun, this noun. Like they move from the general to the specific, more specific, the most specific. A simple example, I can say, I bought a table, the table was black, this table is luxurious, for example. So your job is, when you find two sentences addressing the same, I would say the same subject or the same issue, yeah, or the same noun, you would start from the general, moving to the specific, more specific, most specific, yeah. And again, here I came up with an example to show you how to employ this hint. Okay, take a look here. I'll give you 30 seconds to find the independent sentence, then I will step in. Yes, guys, do you think the independent sentence is A, B, C, D, or E? Yes, it's B. Yeah? So B is the independent sentence. They're saying in most countries it's only the government through their central banks who are permitted to issue currency. Yeah? This sentence will be followed by D. So it's only the government through the central bank, but we have an exception. This exception is in Scotland, where 3 banks are still allowed to issue banknotes. Now you have to take the lead from D. 3 banks, this is general, yeah? 3 banks, we're talking in general. After this, they said the first bank to do this. The first bank, so it was 3 banks, general. Now they're moving to something more specific, the first bank. So that's why C comes after. And now you have to tell me what comes after C. Yes, when this bank, this is the most specific article here. When this bank, so it will be A. Yeah. So again, it was 3 banks, the bank, this bank in particular. And E will be the conclusion or the last sentence, because they did talk here about the lack of an adequate currency. This lack here, by the way, was introduced here in A when they said short supply and of uncertain value. So somehow this is reflecting on this, and this will be the final answer. Let's move to the third clue. How could we find a pair? Pronouns. This is a $1 million tip because it almost exists in every single item, I would say. Yeah. Most of the time we could employ the pronoun to find some pairs. So yeah, here. Again, I'm giving you some time to find the independent sentence. Is it A, B, C, D, or E? I think this one is easy to find the independent sentence. Yes, it is C. The finest asset any child can have is a happy home. By the way, in this example I will employ 2 tips. The very first tip, the object-subject relationship, and the pronoun tip together. Both of them will get me the final answer. If you look at the last phrase in C, happy home, we can find it at the beginning of E, yeah? Such environment. Yeah, so somehow C and E could be a pair. Let's read them together. The finest asset any child can have is a happy home. Such environment will enable him to develop strength. Yeah, let's see. C and D is a pair. Now we start looking at A. At the beginning of A I have a pronoun, it. So you have to ask yourself, this it, where is the noun that was mentioned earlier? So it will be for E, okay? And that's why we all the time say pronouns like he, she, they, it, them are used when the person being talked about or the subject being talked about has already been introduced before. So looking at it, I could say that it refers to such environment. So let's put A and find out if it makes sense. They said in E, such environment will enable him to develop, etc. Yeah? So then in A they say it also will give him something worthwhile to live for. So it makes sense. Done. After A I will get B. A lot of students would say, Ali, why not D? I will show you why. Yeah? So B, if he fails, we are referring to the child. Yeah? So they're saying if he fails, it may have been due to the troubles in his home. And D comes after for the reason which is mentioned here. If he exhibits good judgment in later years, like later on, That's why D comes at the end, yeah? So we were able to get one pair using the first tip, which is the object and subject relationship. And the last two pairs were tackled by using the pronoun tip. So that's the third tip. Happy learning. What do we have else? We do have another tip here, which is the connectors. This is a very, very important tip. Connectors and discourse markers and all those parts of speech could be employed to find some pairs. Connectors such as until, furthermore, however, hence refer to people, events, or ideas mentioned before. Like, if you have a sentence starting with however, yeah? So the sentence starts with however and it is mentioning something positive. You need to look for the sentence that was mentioned earlier and talking about something negative, because however means contradiction from the negative to the positive or vice versa. Or if you have a sentence saying on the other hand or on the other side, ask yourselves, if this is the other side, where did they talk about the first side? So please guys, don't ignore a connector, because it will clearly show you some hint for something was mentioned earlier. Okay, so let's have an example to see how this tip works. I need you to find the independent sentence first. It shouldn't take long time because this is a very easy one. Yes, it is C. They are saying in C that we have a concern, yeah? There's a concern, there's an issue, there's a problem. However, in A, they are saying there is a solution. There is a framework to address this concern. So I would consider C and A as a pair. And now if you apply the strategy as it is, without even reading the full sentences in B and D, you would put D followed by B. Why? Because in D they said on the one hand, and in B they said on the other hand. If you keep reading all the way to the end, you will find out that this is the correct pair. Especially that at the end of A they said differs widely, yeah? So they said the frameworks differ widely, or the framework differs widely. How wide? It is wide from one hand to the other hand, yeah? This is the fourth tip. The fifth tip is related to the adjectives. This is a very handy tip and straightforward tip. We have to look at the adjectives in this sequence. The adjective in its base form, the comparative form, and the superlative form at the end. I would say, for example, the solution that you had put up was good, yeah? So that's my adjective, good. Ria had posted her solution that I found to be better, yeah? So this is the base form, and this is the comparative form. If I have another adjective like best, would be at the end, yeah? Would be at the end. Another tip is related to the active and passive sentences. Usually the active sentence will come before the passive one, yeah? A scientist conducted a successful research. The research was conducted in 2001. So you have to consider writing the active sentence before the passive sentence. Alright, so those are the 6 handy tips that I wanted to share with you today. You can check them anytime. The video is posted here and on my page on YouTube as well.